And you're watching Devil in Divorce. I'm your host, Karyn Turk, with my co-host, Joe Costello, attorney. And we are actually here today talking about alimony, lifetime alimony. And I have Judy joining us, and Judy pays lifetime alimony.
Lucky you.
Not really.
And, you know, I thought it was really great to have a female guest come on, because I think when a lot of people think about alimony, including me, admittedly, I immediately think about men. I think about husbands. And I thought it would be great to have you come on and kind of share your story with our audience.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, there's a misconception that alimony is gender specific, that it's always the husband that gets stuck paying alimony, but that's not the way the law is written. It's spousal support paid from one party to another, and it sounds like, Judy, you're the paying spouse under this circumstance.
That's correct, and I pay because of the divorce laws that are 50-50. And being married after 10 years, we were married for 14 years, being married after 10 years, he was entitled to 50% of everything that I had accumulated, than the equity that it earned from the time that we were married. So prior properties that I had, prior investments that I had, he was entitled to 50% of the equity from the divorce.
Which would have been the same for anybody being married over 10 years.
There is. Well, you know, the length of marriage is just one factor that courts are going to look at when they're determining alimony. And it's interesting because you mentioned this 50-50 concept. The law is designed to balance things out in a divorce, but unfortunately, balancing things out means one party's giving, probably more than they want. So tell us about that. Tell us how this came to be.
In my particular case, what he has taken is 50% of the years that we were married from my Florida state retirement pension. So he gets, through the non-modifiable marriage settlement agreement, he receives monies from my pension either until I die or until he dies.
And I don't think that's really like a state-specific thing where, you know, if you had a retirement or a pension and maybe even we were divorced in another state, you might be in a very similar situation, correct, Joe?
Depending on the state you're in, the courts are going to say, look, if there was something acquired during the marriage, or if there was a liability that was incurred during the marriage, we want to divvy that up. We want to do equity, is what you're going to hear a lot in family court. What you're describing...
Do equity?
Yeah, do equity. In other words, balance things out. The way the law is written, it's designed to try and balance things out. Now, what you're talking about, your pension, there's a number of different ways courts can do that. One is alimony. One is what's called equitable distribution, or if you live in certain states, it's community property, where they're divvying up your assets and your liabilities. It sounds like, and those things are non-modifiable. The division of property, the division of assets, the division of liabilities. Alimony is the Wild West. Alimony, there's no real guidelines for it. It's length of marriage. That's certainly one thing the courts are going to look at, but they're also going to look at what was the lifestyle. What's your need? What's the other party's ability to pay? These are some of the things the courts are going to look at when they're fashioning an alimony award.
And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm getting stuck on this gender role thing because that was why I wanted to have you come on, because I had that perception. Do you feel like, because obviously you were earning more than he was, did you feel like your relationship was unbalanced before? Did you have any anger about that on a personal level?
We were not differences in our income.
Devil in Divorce, Take 4.
About the same. And he had a 401 and I had a 457. And when we started to move into retirement, and some things had changed where several years ago, a lot of people lost their jobs, companies downsized, and we both got caught up in that. I paid off the house, about $90,000, with my 457. So when we went through the divorce, he took half of that.
Wow.
Plus, they considered my retirement pension a marital asset, although they didn't consider his 401 a marital asset. So I wound up paying a great deal into that divorce.
And these weren't even things you could really think ahead on, because nobody really wants to think about what happens if I get divorced. Should I pay off this house in case I get divorced? I mean, I think people don't think ahead because you don't want to think the worst.
Nobody goes into anything, especially in marriage, thinking about the worst. And unfortunately, timing is everything when it comes to assets and liabilities. If your former husband's 401k was acquired prior to your marriage, then yeah, there's a chance the courts are going to look at that and let's separate that out and split up what's left. So unfortunately, in any negotiation, any agreement, I believe you said your divorce was finalized by agreement. In any negotiation, in any agreement, there's going to be some level of give and take. But unfortunately, when you're the person writing the check, so to speak, it's going to feel imbalanced. So I can certainly understand where you're coming from.
Right. Well, another part of this that's very difficult is, like you mentioned, you don't go into a marriage thinking you're going to be divorced.
Right.
So because we were married at a later time in our lives, and he has
Yeah, you met him
children
at like 50, you told me, yeah.
Right. And
Was this a second marriage for
yes.
you? Okay.
So we didn't have any children between us that were ours.
Mm-hmm.
But you go into it thinking, well, this is going to be how I'm going to spend my life with this person. You look at who you're with and you think that this is a companionship as well. And then when you're younger,
right.
there's children.
I don't know. I mean, I
involved.
hate to be cynical, but I feel like a prenup on a second or third marriage is kind of in order.
Yes,
I mean,
most definitely.
do you kind of wish you did that now looking back?
I did go to an attorney, and I did not get very good advice. So you really need to because anything that's prior to the marriage, even though it belongs to that person, anything that earns in equity, that becomes part of that marriage community property.
Judy, what did you find to be different from your first divorce to your second divorce? What was the experience like for you as far as going through it the first time around, the second time around, where you said that I went into this with a bit of a different mindset?
Well, the first time when I was much younger, you move on and you move forward. When you're older, you think this is where you're going to go and you spend your life, and you're going to move forward with this person. It's going to be a life partner. And it's very disappointing because you haven't been able to fulfill. I felt very strongly about the marriage vows, and I was not able to fulfill that. It's created, for me, a tremendous amount of conflict and disappointment. And it's something that comes up constantly because I'm short with things that I would want to do, trips that I would want to take. I pay a considerable amount, and it's very disappointing. So it's a disappointment.
So what's the positive that we can take away from it? Because obviously it is a disappointing situation, but I choose to be optimistic. What is your life lesson for other people that would be watching this and that could learn from your experience?
When I realized that this was not going to be a good situation, and I did move on, and I have my own home, I'm very, very happy with the decisions that I've made, and I'm very content with my life at this point, and that's a good thing.
So thinking about, your situation, what would you like to see change for other people that are in your shoes?
The laws in the state need to be changed to fit the situations for the people.
And really look at the individual situation
Definitely.
more and kind of be able to look at it from a different perspective?
Most definitely.
Thank you, Judy, so much for coming in and sharing your story with us. I know there are a lot of viewers that are going to be impacted by what you shared today. From the beautiful Riverside Hotel, for Devil in Divorce, I'm Karyn Turk, and this is Joe Costello.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Stay tuned.